world around us is changing rapidly. The sharing economy has disrupted the notion of ownership. There's been a surge of small businesses, and now far too many of those are closing. Working from home means we've changed not only our location, but our commutes and the tools we use to do the work that we do. The Internet of Things has created an explosion of data, and cyber is now the #1 threat to US security, according to the Director of National Intelligence, and that's above nuclear weapons. Catastrophes and pandemics have wreaked havoc on this world, and they leave lasting damage that goes beyond the properties and homes they destroy. And on top of that, social inflation is increasing the payouts that insurers have to pay. This creates strain on our insurance market. There's estimated to be $6 trillion of economic loss from cyber in 2021, and 38 cents on the dollar goes to insurance expense. Not paying losses, just the expense of doing insurance. And 5 to 10% of claims payment is estimated to be leakage, so money that we didn't actually need to pay. As we look forward, we see 3 themes. First, underwriting will continue to move from being manual to progressively more automated, from being 12 monthly to being continuous, and from being risk transfer to risk management. This creates the opportunity for an underwriter to do more than just underwrite, but actually to help be a customer success or a risk manager along the journey of that insurance policy. It also creates the opportunity for us to underwrite not just at this moment in time as a static point, but also the opportunity to look at a risk as a trajectory and to actually see where that risk will go in the future and underwrite risk that may not be attractive today, but will become attractive in the future. Second, customer focus will become our North Star, as it has in fintech. This really means looking at loss ratios not as the only measure of performance of a claims group, but also looking at loss ratio plus net promoter score. So really understanding how happy customers are with the service they're getting from us. And 3, analytics will continue to move to the edge. And as we like to say, it's the opportunity to make insurers brilliant in the moment. So say farewell to stale, batch, back office processes and the concept that you need 100 data scientists to make a good decision in an insurance company. At Guidewire Analytics, we help you anticipate the future. As insurers, you're experts at looking at the past to estimate what will happen in the future, and effectively looking in the rearview mirror to drive the car forward. And that works really well, as long as the future is similar to the past. But that's no longer true. As they say, past performance is no guarantee of future results. At Guidewire Analytics, we can't predict the future, but we can help you anticipate it and respond with the industry's first closed-loop analytics platform that makes you brilliant in the moment. So let me show you how this works. First, we help you leverage your own data. Using the Guidewire data platform, you can unlock the data that you already have. You can do contextual analysis to actually look at risks you've written in the past and which are similar to now. And the platform will allow you to use an ecosystem of apps on top of it. Second, you can enrich your own insight. So Science's data listening engine allows us to capture non-obvious and behavioral data to actually complement your underwriting decisions. And we take that data and we also turn it into Science risk factors and exposure signals that will allow you to answer business questions and really make sense of the data that we provide. And you're also able to use our product called Compare, which does syndicated data sharing across different insurers. So you can share claims information in a way that's anonymous and safe, but allows you to see around corners. Third, we embed intelligence. With our predictive analytics tool, you can build, deploy, and monitor models. You can bring your own models and your own workflows, and you can collaborate with open source tools. And fourth, we allow continuous learning, so the ability to underwrite continuously, to do A/B testing, and to feed information back to the models so we can understand how the models can improve with the outcomes you have. So I'd like you to remember 2 things from our closed loop. First, it's like a flywheel spinning faster and faster, and each of these pieces reinforces the other. And second, these are all powerful ways to complement your existing Guidewire core. So now I'd like to hand it over to Marina, who's going to walk you through how our closed loop makes you brilliant in the moment.
Thank you, Roger. Every day, our customers face important business questions, both at the strategic level, like what new markets to go after, and in the moment of every transaction, like how to price a particular risk. The health of the business really depends on your ability to make the right decisions and make them fast. And that's where Guidewire Analytics can help. We turn data into business predictions and recommendations and provide these insights in the right places of the insurance lifecycle to enrich the experience of many stakeholders, from policyholders applying for insurance, to brokers and agents facilitating a placement, to the insurers who underwrite and bind the coverage. Now let's take a look at an example. An independent broker decides that it's time to market their general liability insurance to a new carrier using the Guidewire digital experience. The broker begins the submission process by entering the policy details, coverage, qualifications for Acme Wholesale, an auto parts wholesaler that supplies parts to several thousand businesses in the US, employs about 60 people, and its operations are mostly centralized in the greater Nashville area. As this data entry is happening, Guidewire's data listening engine is hard at work in the background, collecting the data about Acme in real time and evaluating Acme's loss profile. The data listening technology is able to assess different types of risks like cyber, workers' compensation, employment practices liability, and now in Banff, it's been extended to include general liability risk as well. Within just a few seconds, the results are back. If this was a low-risk policy, a quote could be produced straight away. However, in this case, Guidewire finds some issues, including recent safety violations, as well as a high litigation susceptibility index in Acme's zip code. For these reasons, this quote is referred to a human underwriter for evaluation. Now, let's switch gears and go to the underwriter screen in Policy Center to see their view of Acme's insurance submission. This risk has already been submitted through Guidewire digital channels, so the underwriter can get straight to work. It's now up to the underwriter to decide whether they can surcharge this risk enough to be comfortable issuing a quote. Conveniently, the information needed to make this decision is provided right here, where we can see a number of predictions and recommendations along with the risk factors that contributed towards them positively or negatively. Guidewire Analytics creates these recommendations based on the carrier's own data, enriched with third-party data collected and curated by the data listening engine to increase the signal of prediction. What prevented this risk from auto-quoting is presented right here, where you can see the red flag issues related to litigation and safety violations. Analytics also predict a relatively high loss ratio, meaning that, given what we know about this risk, the price is not adequate at the current filed rates. The underwriting recommendation is to surcharge at least 8%. But the 3-year retention probability, as modeled by Guidewire, is very good, meaning this is likely to be a long-term policyholder. There is also an audit recommendation because Guidewire Analytics models have identified this policy as likely to be misclassified. It is recommended that Acme's classifications be confirmed by a trained premium auditor. Based on this information, the underwriter decides to issue the quote at a 10% surcharge and to order a midterm audit to verify policy classifications. But there is just one more thing to decide on before releasing the quote. Should the underwriter propose an optional cyber liability endorsement for Acme Manufacturing, given the increased demand for such coverage in the manufacturing sector? As you can see in the underwriting issues list, offering a cyber liability endorsement is not recommended. What's the reason behind this? When we click through, we see immediately that Acme has a number of red flags, including something called Detected Remote Desktop Protocol. This is a new cyber risk factor that was added in the Banff release. RDP is a common service which enables a user to remotely access a Windows computer. Because this allows users to fully engage with a system from any location, RDP functionality is very popular, especially when a large proportion of the workforce is working from home. But it also happens to be by far the most common way for attackers to gain access to systems and install ransomware or other malware. For that reason, it is incredibly important that RDP ports are not exposed to the internet. Because of this security shortfall, the underwriter can either choose to decline to offer a cyber endorsement to the general liability policy, increase the price on the endorsement, or help the agent work with a policyholder to mitigate the risk by sharing some helpful tips for how to secure RDP access, for example. Our underwriter doesn't need to be a cyber expert to be able to do this, because Guidewire Analytics provides recommendations and best practices for each of the risk factors it found. Now, the quote can be returned to the agent via Guidewire Digital. I've just shown you some of the ways in which insights from Guidewire Analytics based on both a carrier's own data and external data can make stakeholders brilliant in the moment, from submission intake to risk selection and pricing, and all the way through the binding process. In Banff, multiple predictive models can be brought into PolicyCenter or ClaimCenter in a matter of hours using our embedded analytics framework. This framework helps our cloud and self-managed customers operationalize analytics through automated deployments so that they can start taking action on results and create real value for their business. Back to you, Roger.
Now that you know where we're at today, let's take a peek into our lab to see where we're heading. We've been exploring tools to help you make the best possible decision. Many of you have asked us, when do we trust models? We think the right question is, when do you trust any decision variable? In our language, when do you weight those variables? Whether that's data provided from a customer, third-party data, models, or your own intuition. And we think that knowledge graphs can help. They help us estimate confidence around hypotheses, especially when there's underlying Bayesian networks to power them. And they're very good at helping us understand how a new piece of information changes our decision. So in our example, we're going to determine with what confidence a driver is good or poor. Let's start by setting the stage. We have 4 drivers. Each of them are male, 40 years old, and have received a ticket for driving through a stop sign in the last 30 days. Now let's get familiar with our knowledge graph that we're going to apply to this scenario. The circles that you see are nodes, and on the interior, those represent decision variables. On the exterior, they represent outcomes. The lines that you see are paths connecting each of those nodes, and their color is representative of the downstream probability of outcomes. Blue means you're a good driver, and red means a poor driver. The size of the circles dictates our confidence in that prediction. So a large circle, we're confident, and a smaller circle, we're less confident. Now let's ask all of our 4 drivers 3 questions. The first question, have you been driving for more than 1 year? For driver 1, they have not. Because of that piece of information, we deem that they're a poor driver with high confidence. So they have a red path straight to the edge of the circle as an outcome. For the other 3 drivers, they've been driving for 20 years. So they proceed to the next question, and that path is blue because the downstream outcomes are more likely that they're good drivers versus poor drivers. So our second question, do you have a clean record? For driver number 2, they have a clean record. So they proceed to the edge of the circle with the outcome on a blue path that they're a good driver. And the interpretation is that they just had an exception, but they're actually a great driver. So we have high confidence around that interpretation. For the other 2 drivers, they have had a previous ticket, which brings us to our third and final question. How many miles do they drive each year? And we have a range of outcomes from 1,000 miles to 12,000 miles. You can see each of those 12 nodes. And the 4th node is neutral, which means at that point, we're unclear whether they're a good or a poor driver. For driver 3, they've driven 2,000 miles per year on average. So that takes them to the edge with an understanding that they're probably a poor driver with medium confidence. So driver 4 drives 10,000 miles per year. So we take them to the edge of the circle on a blue path and deem that they're a good driver, but because they've had 2 tickets, we have low confidence that they're a good driver. Still a good driver, but less confidence. So in conclusion, we have 4 drivers, 2 of which we deem to be poor drivers and 4 of which we deem to be good drivers, and we have different levels of confidence around each of those determinations. Knowledge graphs help us pursue the 3 themes that we mentioned at the start. First, as underwriting moves from being manual to progressively automated, from being 12 monthly to continuous, and from risk transfer to risk management, knowledge graphs allow us to incorporate new information and see how it changes our outcomes and our decisions. Second, as customer focus becomes a North Star, knowledge graphs, when used backwards, can help us actually advise customers about how to become better drivers and better risks. So we can use the information encapsulated in them to actually advise and help our customers. And third, as analytics become increasingly at the edge, frontline staff have at their fingertips deep insight to explain and have difficult conversations with customers and explain why the outcomes are the way that they are in a way that they can understand and relate with. As we step out of the lab in this glimpse into the future, we're excited about the results that we've delivered to many of you as customers. And as makers and tinkerers, we're passionate about the art of the possible. So this is how we help you anticipate the future and be brilliant in the moment. You know Guidewire for our core products, and now it's time to take a look at our analytics.